do is wrong. Get up.
23 positions in a one-night stand.
Get up.
I'll only call you after if you say I can.
Get up. Let a woman be a woman and a man be a man. Get up.
If you want to, baby, here I am.
Here I am. I got the jizz from a friend of yours named Vanessa Bet. She said you told her a fantasy that got her all. Something about a little box with a mirror.
The mothership has landed. Radio. Welcome to the jungle.
Ladies and gentlemen, live from the broken down, low-rent, sleazy, double greasy pirate radio Nut Hut Studios, it's time for the very first ever Southern...
Attention.
CPR Street Gang, this is all biting. Standing by, over. This is all biting. Standing by, over.
Right now, it's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines...
Clock's run out. Time's up.
Wind is blowing cold and dark. On the road and no way out. Broken house, the smoking gun. On the run. On the run.
You never get a signal in your apartment. Hey, can I use your laptop?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thanks.
What the fuck? Holy shit, dude, what's the matter? What happened? What's going on?
There's so much porn!
Well, what the hell are you doing looking at my private shit?
What are you talking about? Private shit, Johnny? It was wide open. There were literally thousands of files here.
Well, I've been meaning to clear some of that out.
Jesus Christ, look at the organization here. Clockwise rim job, counterclockwise rim job.
Yeah, well, sometimes you like seeing the tongue go the other way.
You sick bastard. Look at this. Chicks with dicks. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. I have a disease, all right? I need help. There are no chicks with dicks, Johnny. Only guys with tits.
Well, this is such a relief. You know, I'm glad I'm finally caught. I wanted to be caught.
Johnny, now you listen to me. This is a wake-up call, all right? You gotta get back out there and meet somebody because you are spiraling out of control here.
All right, fine. I will. Just stop looking at that shit, please.
Johnny, I mean it, all right? The next chick you meet, you are getting back in the game.
Fine,
My name's Jimmy. Coming in hot on my Aftermath FM app. You can find those wherever you find applications. Android, Apple, whatever your flavor. Don't you worry about a thing. We got you covered. Well, it's Tuesday night. The Outlaw Doctor is with us tonight. Doc McCarran. We got Mike from Conspirazones with us tonight. The Epic Journeyman's here. We're going to talk about sex tonight. We're going to talk about porn. We're going to talk about social engineering. That's right. So I'm glad you stuck around after Clyde Lewis and Ground Zero. What a great show tonight. Again, it's a pleasure to be here. And just want to let you know, Into the Microcosm is on the app.
was feeling kind of ethereal, 'cause I had my eye on your imperial, your soul. Now Howard the Duck and Mr. Strasbourg stayed trapped in a world that they never made. But not me, baby, I'm too pressed to have a fuck off. You made me wanna, you made me wanna, you made me make it. Oh, it's so mean.
Epic Journeyman. Are you out?
I am here.
Excellent.
How could I not be? We're talking about sex.
I know. Well, what's to miss? I mean, there's a. Let me just say. I mean, I can see you there on the tall wave coming into the shore, and there's nothing but G-strings and oily butts on the beach. For some reason, that's always the case. The baby oil comes out, and the butts get shiny on the beach. Doesn't matter what sex you are. People used to like to get the tan. You know, do people still pour on the baby oil over there on the islands up in Germany?
No, not so much. I mean, it's banned. Like regular suntan lotion and stuff is banned over here because it damages the reef. So there's only a couple places, you know. I mean, people take it with their stuff when they pack it in their suitcase. But, yeah, generally people are, you know, more environmentally alert now about that kind of stuff.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, it's you still see a lot of them on the beach though.
Yeah,
it's a good time to come over because the weather's starting to. It's not really cooling off yet, but
It's a good
you get
time
that kind of autumn, kind of the colors are, you know, that kind of different shade. You know what I mean? And the whales are starting to get here.
Yeah.
I saw my first spouts today, the whales, and you know, and it gets romantic over here, man.
Well, you know, I think it's, you know, you should stay unto yourselves and leave everybody else out of it, because I see a lot of stuff going on over there with, you know, people trying to, I saw something with these, an NBA player that came over and tried to say that he was, he had partaken in the experiment, but then was found out that he wasn't. So, I mean, you know, you were saying that they were getting pretty hardcore about carding you and everything wherever you go, eh? Epic Journeyman, did you fall off? What
I did fall off there for a minute. You know, I had to go double check the card. I heard some NBA guy was over here trying to sneak one in on us. Yeah, no, they are. They're pretty brutal about checking that right now. But there was a article in the paper today that they're going to relax restrictions. Maybe the governor's considering. But this is like the most intense it's been as far as checking people. I mean, you got the big bouncers, you know, at the door.
Well,
everywhere you go right now.
You know what, man? I'll just tell you what, man. It pisses me off when they need something from you, they kiss your ass, okay? Oh, you know, hey, the thing's over. Come on over to the islands or whatever. Come spend your money. And then people go over there, spend their money. Now, they got to made enough money for a bit. They got fat on them $600 a day rental cars and all that shit. Now they're like, hey, you know, let's be a little bit more picky now. The same thing with New York City. I don't want to, you know, look, we're not Groundhog Day in it tonight. That's exactly why we're talking about porn, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to talk about it. No one wants to talk about it. We'll talk about it because we don't discriminate against information, do we, Epic Journeyman? We'll talk about porn because it needs to be talked about. But before I get that, I just want to point out, New York was begging for people to come help them out in the thing, and now they kick them to the curb with no unemployment. In New York City, man, how can you even eat? I mean, what's it cost? What's it cost for a sandwich in New York? It's like fucking $20 probably, just a sandwich. I bet it's $20.
If you rent, it's like $4,000, right?
That's what I'm saying.
On average.
Yeah. So, you know, there it is. It's just like, you know, at one point when there became so many customers out there that you didn't have to be nice to the customers anymore. If they never came back, you didn't care because there's fucking so many new customers right behind them to come buy the shit in your store. That's when things started to go south, man. When you didn't have to care anymore. Because there's so many other people that are willing to just step in there without the customer service. They don't care. You know what I mean? They don't care if someone treats them nice or whatever. So, you know, hey, they suck you in, they, you know, make you feel nice and tell you a story. And then you come in and they get what they need off you and then see you later. See you later. So tonight, porn. It's the other white meat, you know. No one wants to talk about it. It doesn't get talked about in the alternative media, mostly because a lot of the big alternative media players want to play out to the Christian demographic, and so there's certain subjects that just don't want to mix with the Christian demographic, and porn and sex and talking about it might be one of those things. But I just want to mention, if you do have any, and we don't know because we're going out around the world on Aftermath FM Monday through Friday, 10:30 Pacific, immediately following Clyde Lewis and Ground Zero. So we don't know at what time of the day it may be where you are. So let me just say this. If you have children or young people in the room, you might want to ask them to go play some handball or something. But don't let them have a phone.
Don't send them in the room to the computer because they might be watching porn.
That's what I'm saying, man. I mean, what I'm learning about this is literally mind-blowing. At the age that some of these kids are getting into porn, it's like unbelievable, man. I mean, back in the day, you know, people didn't know about sex until they had it. You know, there wasn't like a step-by-step guide for every single kind of fetish and kinky thought. There's a million videos on there. It doesn't matter what you type in. You type something in, there's going to be some video for it. And and if you want to learn about it, then you can. And so, you know, you see this whole psychology sort of sweep through the world. I mean, this is no accident that porn is free. Do you ever wonder how it was free? Well, we're going to tell you. Well, you know what? We have a greatest hits from John McAfee that we're going to bring down on the show a little bit later, just about what goes on with your actual phone or tablet while you may be watching porn. But porn is pervasive. Is it not, Epic Journeyman?
Now it sure is. You know, and it's ironic in a way because I've unintentionally, because of the industries I've worked in, other than when I was a submarine guy or whatever, right? Been around it so much because my dad was a professional photographer, right? So he did new models and stuff, had some spreads in Playboy. My cousin was a Playmate, right? That's not really porn, but back then it was, right? And then I was in the video industry, had a video store, so I was around it there. And then I'm a total tech geek with the VR. And I mean, it's like one of the biggest things with VR right now.
Well,
it's going to become huge.
Well, let's back up a minute because, and you know what, Mike from Conspirazone, are you there? I just want to get you in here in the conversation because the doc will be getting in here in a minute.
Yeah, I'm here, dude.
Excellent. Well, so listen, so the porn industry and all of a sudden the echo thing is happening again. Anyways, the porn industry is about as pervasive as it can be. But back in the day, like I was saying, there was no porn. It was like there was there was magazines and movies and stuff that could be bought down at this store or a weird store someplace in your town, someplace down by the liquor stores and the pawn shops. There was a place for you to get porn. But other than that, there was none. There was like Playboy, this and that, pretty lighthearted. I mean, compared to what there is today. And then you saw the advent of Hustler magazine. It was kind of like Playboy was the Beatles, and then Penthouse was like the Stones. You know what I mean? Playboy was more classier, but then Penthouse came along, was going a little further than Playboy. And then you saw Larry Flynt come in with Hustler magazine, and then he took it to a whole new level. But at that point, there still was no internet. But when the internet was being developed, one of the biggest developers of what we see today and what we take for granted is a company down in Southern California. It was originated called Broadcom. Broadcom was the one that developed the technology to be able to get video to go over twisted pair, which means your phone wire, which means your 56K modem back in the day. So at the original beginning point of this, Broadcom came up with that technology, and for the most part, I mean, a lot of the internet and what we see today was primarily done with money from the porn industry because they wanted to be able to show videos on the internet. So, I mean, there isn't a person alive that hasn't experienced porn, and anybody who says they haven't, is probably not telling the truth. So, I mean, everybody, and including males, females, and otherwise, everybody has moments where they don't have a partner, and they're looking for some way to accommodate themselves with some sexual gratification, that type of thing. Let's see if the doc is here yet.
I am here. Can you hear me?
Hey, great. Well, it's good to have you, Doc, man. How have you been since we last saw you? Everything good? Everybody's healthy?
Yes, thankfully. Things that, like I say, Japan is an island of sanity in a crazy world at the moment, and thankfully, even what can I say? Even here with the pornography, the crotches get pixelated out.
Do they really? Well, that's interesting. Yeah. I didn't know that, but what I was going to say is, now that you bring it up, I hadn't thought about it until you mentioned it there, but Japan is one of the kinkiest, weirdest places there is on Earth for sex.
Don't get me wrong as they're being paragons of virtue, but they do have still standards here. And I'll give you another example. Korea basically has a porn firewall. That if you try to use any server without a VPN, you get a warning, and it's a police warning that you're not allowed to look at pornography. It's against the law in South Korea. And you have to get a VPN to get around it.
Well, so what happens if you continue on and you get the warning? Do they come to your house and drag you out and take you out and throw you in the pen? What do they do?
You know what? I don't know.
It's a trip. Literally, how much money? Epic Journeyman. Let's go to the Journeyman for statistics. Epic Journeyman. What are the statistics on porn? Let's just take Pornhub, for example. How much time is spent on Pornhub in a 24-hour period?
Well, one of the interesting statistics, I think, is the people who admit to doing it at work, to using it at work. There's an average of 10 to 12 hours a week of average worker. That people admitting that they use it at work, which is just fascinating to me, considering that, every place I've ever worked, you get fired for doing that, right? But apparently, no, a lot of places they don't have their firewalls, they don't have it all set up, and they admit that kind of thing. But it's 40 million U.S. adults regularly visit internet pornography websites, and 10% of adults admit having an addiction to internet pornography. I think it's interesting. 17% of all women struggle with porn addiction. I know a lot of guys
that's what I was going to ask you. So that's what I was going to ask you. So can you hang your hat on any demographic? Is there any breakout of men, women, and therefore otherwise, gay, straight? Is there a whole pie chart of exactly who's?
You guys look for them. Yeah, there is. The most consistent ones just refer to 1 in 3 visitors are women. And 70% of women admit that they keep their cyber activities secret. But they're not secret to the people monitoring the site, because they collect all that information, whether the people know it or not.
Right.
We'll get into that a little bit later.
Right.
But yeah.
Well, it was interesting because one of the big trends I see across the porn industry, it's not that I see, but that I know about, is this public masturbation fetish. And,
what? Wait, what?
Yeah, so let me bring this up. So, and the reason I'm even bringing it up is because recently, what's funny is I had heard about it about a month or so ago, somehow, and then I see this story last week, and we were gonna get to it on the show on Sunday, which was this car lot, and the car salesman goes out to one of the cars and looks in the back, and there's a chick in the back, and she's pleasuring herself in the back of this Toyota. Okay, so they call the cops. All right, and this is the reason I was going to bring the story up, because she was talking to people in the car that weren't there, and we had done that show about voices in your head, and so this story was going to be on that show, but I didn't get around to it. So the cop reported that the woman stayed in the back of the car and continued to pleasure herself until she climaxed while she was talking to people that weren't there. And what was going through my mind when I'm reading the story was she wasn't talking to people that weren't there. She was shooting a video on her phone, and you just didn't know it, right? The phone was down there on the floor somewhere because she had no clothes on. Her legs were up. She was spread eagle, wide open, in the back seat of this Toyota minivan or something. So then eventually they get her to come out, and they couldn't find her clothes anywhere. There was no pants, no underwear, nothing. She was just completely naked. This might have to do with the current situation that we've talked about before with the sickness of people going crazy. But here's the thing. The story ended with the car salesman saying, you know, because obviously the car is still for sale and someone was interested in it, and that's why he walked up to it in the first place. But I guess after this episode, he said the car reeked and stunk worse than anything he's ever smelled in his life. It smelled like a dead mackerel or something in there. So it's disgusting as it is, but see, I mean, this is the level of where it gets to when people start. You know, have you guys, any of you on this panel, have you ever seen the movie Bitter Moon? It's a Roman Polanski movie, Bitter Moon. It's starring Peter Wolf.
Just trailers, just parts of it.
Yeah, basically.
I've seen the segment of the movie, but not the whole thing.
Basically, it's a story about this guy in a wheelchair. He's on a cruise. He meets this uptight couple, and he's got a super hot wife. And they're out to dinner, and he's in this wheelchair, and he's a writer. And so he interests this couple in dinner conversation, and in particular, the man of the couple. It really gets into the discussion, and he's trying to figure out how the hell is this guy in a wheelchair have this super hot wife that's dancing all over the boat. You know, she's a dancer, literally. And so he starts telling him the story about it. And basically, it's a story about him, and he meets this girl, and you know, it's a really super sick relationship between the two of them, and she's super in love with him, and he just really does a number on her, and then kicks her to the curb after he's finished with her. But then, you know, lo and behold, right after that, he gets run over by a car, and he ends up paralyzed from the neck down. And then the chick comes back from an insane asylum, and takes care of him while he's sick. But before that, and the reason I'm telling you the whole story about it, you can see that for yourself. It's called Bitter Moon. It's a good movie, too. I'd highly recommend it. The part about the sex in the thing is because he meets her, and they get together. And it's like any relationship. At the beginning of the relationship, you know, everybody's hot for each other. Everybody's having a lot of sex, you know, sex every day, sex as many times a day as you can, as much sex as you can possibly get until the point where you just don't want to have sex anymore. Until it gets to that point where it starts to become routine, and then it's like, you know, the weeks go by, and, you know, you didn't realize it, and then next thing you know, it's been 6 months that you had sex with your partner. That kind of thing. Well, so that didn't happen in this relationship, because what happened for them was, as they became more and more bored with the sex they were having, their sex had to become kinkier and kinkier for them to get off. Okay, it had to get kinkier and kinkier and kinkier and kinkier until it reaches this one point where he's wearing a piggy mask, and watch the movie. I don't want to get too much into it, but listen, it just gets to that point, and it's the same thing that happens with this. It's the same thing that happens with porn, is that it progressively goes in these directions, and because there's such a plethora of free porn available, just like that little piece we played at the beginning of the show there, there's no matter what your preference, fetish, or creepy idea is, there's videos about it on the internet, and there's a whole group of people. And if there's more than one person, it's a group. You know what I mean? Now you guys got a whole little reality that you can live in, and everybody can get off on that same shit, no matter how weird or kinky it is. All right, listen, I laid down my foundation. First of all, Doc, can you jump in on this now? Why is there such a seeking of this of the porn for the human from a human brain perspective? Why are we seeking? I mean, I understand the human nature of it. In other words, I want to propagate my seed, therefore I seek a recipient for that seed, so that I can have children. And that's the normal, natural reason for sex. But beyond just the having of the sex for the event of the child, then there becomes the sex for pleasure. And then there becomes this seeking of pleasure. The seeking of the orgasm is really the only goal. There is no real anything else in mind. Once the orgasm becomes the goal, then how you get to the orgasm at that point really starts to not matter. And I think that's kind of where we are now, because it used to be a certain kind of thing going on, but now anything goes, and you can do anything you want, because then like I say, if you want to know how to do it, just go to Pornhub. So what about that, Doc McCarran? How about this porn? And how is it? It's an experiment, is it not? I mean, is this not a live experiment, kind of like what we've been going through a little, in a way?
I would argue that it's a psychological operation engaged in a form of warfare for your mind. They've known this for generations, and pornography is easy access into the minds of individuals, and one, because we're evolutionarily tuned to take notice of attractive bodies, okay? And we are one of the species which has evolved for, as you said, not just mating for procreation. There's a pleasure aspect to sex that, it could be argued from an evolutionary perspective is there as a way for pair bonding, continued pair bonding over the lifetime of the relationship, especially if there's children, such that you're establishing a safe home, if you like, right? So healthy parents that have a good, healthy relationship should be lauded, and it should be something that stands as an example to children. The problem is that right now, as you said, what's happened is as we've commoditized the act, and what we find is that people get desensitized. They then have to find more and more extreme examples, stimuli, and we've literally reached I hate to use the pun, a climax with how much it's degenerating into our families, into our culture, and there needs to be a proper conversation about it, because it's a new environment to be having these stimuli available 24/7 in VR, right? You can whack a VR set on your head, and you can get a whatever view you want to call, first person view, right?
Epic Journeyman is a VR beta tester, and so we can get into some of that too, because I think we're seeing, like I said earlier, the technology in the beginning was really about showing video on the internet. And this next step into the VR, in conjunction with some of this AI and some of this robotic technology, with these lifelike skins and these HAP suits or whatever, you're going to be in a suit, and it'll be just like you're having sex, or just like you're enjoying the porn that you're watching, but now you'll be completely and utterly immersed in it. My name's Jimmy. It's Into the Microcosm. We'll be right back.
People write us about their experience with Extendivite. Allow me to read you one of them from Amazon.com. I was diagnosed with high blood pressure. I was a little bit alarmed, as I have always been in good health. I started this regime as soon as it arrived, and I have noted that the heaviness in my chest is gone, and the pressure headaches I have been having are lessened. I am hoping to see greater results as time progresses, as I am an avid non-user of pharmaceuticals and avoid them at all cost if possible. This was, I think, a great alternative to heart medication. Not that I am a doctor, and for some, there is no choice, but again, for someone like me, I am so far pleased with the results. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
It's Aftermath FM. Monday through Friday right here at 10:30 Pacific, immediately following Clyde Lewis. You can find us. And some trolls have found us over on Into the Microcosm with Jimmy Jean's Strike Zone. And they can kiss my ass, son. I mean, you know, the thing is, man, there is no intellectual capacity in your trolling. You're trolling, it's just like there's no sex in your violence, punk. See what I'm saying? No sex in your violence. Everything's zen. I don't think so. But anyway, that was the Die Vinyls from Australia. I touch myself. And you know, there's lots of people seem to be touching themselves, Epic Journeyman. Now, refresh me on these statistics over there now. What is the average stay of an individual who finds themselves on the Pornhub website? Is there an average stay for individuals?
The last time I looked, it was like 8 minutes.
8 minutes.
I looked up them directly though. What I've been looking at is how much time they, in general, people spend, and it's pretty significant. You know, I mean, people spending hours a day. That's a significant chunk of time. You know, even if it's only 1 or 2. Well, that seems to be what's confessed the most. What I find really interesting is some of the people who admit that they're watching porn. This is one of the things that just blew me away was how many people in the church, you know, that are Christians claim and admit they use porn. There's 1 in 5 youth pastors and 1 in 7 senior pastors. That's what pastors rather. It's more than 50,000 U.S. church leaders. That's a lot, you know. And it's 43% of senior pastors and youth pastors say they have struggled with pornography in the past, and 64% of Christian men and 15% of Christian women say they watch porn at least once a month. Which, of course, they're lying. They'd watch it more than that if they admit to that.
So
yeah, it's amazing, actually.
So that's 15 out of 100 people. At 15 out of 100 people at your church. How many people are at your church? 500? So look, there's a fucking swingers party right there.
It's church. Yeah, I know. This is actually the evangelical church we're talking about here, right? Or it could be a Catholic mass as well. Doesn't really make that specification.
Well, let's apply that to that Joel Osteen church. Look how many people are in there.
Oh, for sure. I'm just saying.
Look how many people are in there. So then figure out 15% of that crowd. That's a big crowd. That's a lot of people, you know. And it's a lot of people searching for a little climax, for that perfect moment, that 1 millisecond of that feeling that you chase for the rest of your life. It's like being addicted to heroin. You're never gonna get that high, right? Like that first high that you got. You'll never get it again, but you'll chase it for the rest of your life. It's the same thing with this, because like we were saying a moment ago, now you said 8 minutes, okay? That's an important number to me in relation to what we're talking about, because a lot of what we talk about a lot of what we talk about on this show is social engineering, and that's really why we're talking about porn tonight, because porn is the biggest social engineering experiment that's ever been happening on the internet. If you think Facebook is social engineering, man, you have no idea about the level of it, because listen, I'll point out to 2 things here, and then we can get rolling on some of this. The first thing is that 8 minutes. Okay, so what's the average length of the average man's sex with his wife. I'll guarantee you it is somewhere in the realm of 8 minutes. They lead till 8 minutes. Why? Because they've been trained to ejaculate quickly. Because they go to these sites where they have to do their business and get on with their day. So inadvertently, they've been training men to prematurely ejaculate. Okay, the psychological ramifications of that are women don't feel satisfied by the men that they're with. So they have to find refuge in some other thing or device that it's literally physically impossible for a man to stay hard as long as a silicone-shaped penis suction cupped to the bathroom floor. So
combine that with VR and imagine what you're dealing with, right? In a haptic suit. I mean, the thing about this is, like, I just actually went to the Pornhub site. It's not the actual site. They call it the Long and Short of Porn Watching is the name of the website, but it's from Pornhub. It's hosted there. It says the average person visiting Pornhub spends 9 minutes and 20 seconds. So they've improved. They've gotten better. In his Vice doing an interview, I guess, talking about this. And it's interesting that the older the people are, the longer they can spend, because they got more experience, I guess. They're they have a little bit more longevity, no pun intended.
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay, so let's magnify this here. I'll tell you what. Just because we can wander around this subject, I'll give you one more really blatant social engineering aspect of porn, and that is, women in porn back in the day, for the most part, they just look regular. It was like a regular woman on the street kind of thing. Sexy and hot, but I mean, just regular. But as time went on, they took and they made the models look younger and younger and younger. They want girls that are like 30 years old, they want them to look like they're 15 years old. Because the social engineering was to, for example, I'll throw Britney Spears in the mix. Because when you have the Britney Spears video that made her the big star that she was, Hit Me, Baby, One More Time, in her schoolgirl miniskirt, looking like she's 16 years old or whatever. Meanwhile, in the background, all the porn is getting younger and younger looking, and they're literally training men to salivate over younger women, to make that to be the sexual desired thing for men. Just like Howard Stern popularized two girls getting it on with each other, or a threesome that involved you and two women. Only the two women were with each other, and you were watching that. To me, I mean, if I was going to be fantasizing about something, I'd be involved with the two. I wouldn't be watching it. But somehow we were made to think that women were attracted to each other. Whether they were or they weren't on the level that we see today, I don't know. But as a result of men are from Mars, women are from Venus, and what I described earlier as premature ejaculation and men just not knowing how to do anything that women want to have done to them, that another woman would know better. So we find ourselves in a situation, right? So now we're in 2021, and so all of these things leading up into the point that we're at now, we've come to this place where, from a societal perspective, sex has taken on a whole new thing. It's not just for having babies anymore. It's for having.
It's been weaponized, Jimmy. Look, there's a very, very good example of how good of a psychological weapon it is, and that. Every time Israel goes into the Gaza Strip, they hijack the TV stations and play pornography. Why do they do that? Because it takes a lot of the men off the streets and out of the battle, right? And the ability to hijack the reward pathways in the brain that have been honed over millions of years of evolutionary pressure to aim for a target mate. So think what's involved in that. You want a good genetic specimen, right? Because you want to match, and you could look at statistics, and it's comparable, the type of person that it would be the guy in the wheelchair scenario that you were talking about. It tends not to happen, right? You sort of gravitate to, or what used to happen was you gravitate to people that were in your ballpark with respect to your genetics. What's happened is it's not just the pornography itself, is that we've taken the whole premise of that industry, I guess, is one way of looking at it, and you've now seen it evolve into an interactive, I guess, kind of sport through these apps, Tinder and Grindr and whatever. I don't know what they do, but basically it's, as I understand it, it knows your GPS and then knows people within your, I don't know, 10-mile radius, and you swipe through. So what happens is that there are biological traits that come into play, and in males, you want to there's something called R versus K selection, which is how would you go about having offspring. And one strategy is to have sex with lots of females and not care about the upbringing of the child. The other is to find a good mate and devote all your effort into bringing up a sort of smaller family. And different species of animals have different ways of implementing this R versus K selection stratagem. At the same time as men have a sort of implicit drive to go towards the many mate scenario and spreading their seed, women have a trait called hypergamy, which is they tend to move across and up that scale where you're looking at the what would be an appropriate partner under any other circumstance. So what happens is that the alpha males tend to aggregate women, and they will just they don't mind, okay, because it's just it's one night for them, okay, and they can switch easily to partner, and it's pulling out of the environment mates for the dudes that aren't jacked going down the gym or have 150 IQ and are driving Ferraris, and we're causing a lot of imbalance in this factor, and that's another driver for people getting caught up into
because they can't, because if they're not the guy who with the 8-pack abs and who's ripped and all this, then, and that's most of society is not that. Most of society is not the prom queen and the prom king, okay, but every single person is looking for that. So, but that doesn't exist for everybody, and not everybody can be in that game. So there has to be something for everybody else. And so I think the biggest, hardest part of any kind of relationship or meeting people or going to a bar and having sex, the hardest part about that is being able to have what it takes to walk up to somebody and start a conversation with them. And so a lot of today's people are not skilled in that particular aspect because of
but they've defaulted to the apps. The app does the work.
Exactly.
Right.
Just like the GPS gets you to where you're going, and just like people can't remember phone numbers anymore. So all these are skills from the human psychology that you're talking about that we've lost because it's been engineered out of us. And I think it wouldn't be beyond the pale to call it the industrial pornography complex. The industrial pornography complex, because that's what it is. This is a business, and listen, ladies and gentlemen, make no mistake about it. How much of this economy in the world, think of the overall economy, how much of what's been spent out there on dollars and cents is trying to attract people of the opposite sex? Everything is about it. Music's about it. Music's about love, falling in love, finding somebody to be with. It's everything. Why do you go to college, man? Why do you want to make money? What do you need so much money for? Do you need it to be rich just because you want to be rich, or do you want to have money so you can attract the right people? You want to have the right degree so you can get in the right group of people and attract the right kind of mate. See, all of these things put a lot of people outside the norm and outside where they can even meet anybody. So they're better off to be alone, to be by themselves, and to just take care of business and get on with their lives. I think that's what a lot of people do in modern society. And I think, on some level, you got to look directly at the population reduction idea and say to yourself, well, this fits right along in with it. I mean, this is part of that social engineering. This is getting you... I don't want to get too deep into it without a 2x4 strapped around my back, but
you're diminishing the gene pool, though, right?
But what I'm saying,
that's what we're saying. Like the spawners favors the spawners.
Yeah.
Right.
Hey, listen, oral sex doesn't result in babies. Neither does anal sex. So, however you want to look at that, you look at it, but just know that there's a lot of that going on. And so that eliminates babies, and so does masturbation and porn. So that is a bit, I don't even know what the demographic is on it. Is there a demographic on versus, racial demographic?
There is. So this Pornhub thing by Vice and, this combination of research here is a total gold mine. I'm tripping out on some of this stuff here. So I had to mute myself because I was cracking up on some of it. But there's a really interesting thing here, like with women watching porn. Like, so what they do is they take these scales and they add the numbers. Remember, it said it's 9 minutes and 20 seconds. And for each category, they have an addition of so many seconds or subtraction of seconds by category for men and women watching these different, categories. And the biggest one out of all of them was plus 195 seconds for women with hentai, the subject hentai. Talking about the Japanese freaks over there as far as the comic books and things like that. So the women really, really favor that, like more than anything else by far. And then the next closest one is old with young for men, which is, we're talking about earlier, the not necessarily favoring the teens or whatever, but just, the old guy, with the young girl kind of thing. So that's 113 seconds for men. That's the biggest category, followed by mature, gay, amateur, and then starts going down there, right? Interracial. Actually, teens only plus 24 seconds, which I found surprising, actually. I don't want to get into all these categories, obviously. But
well, don't you think
it's amazing the difference? I mean, it's a minus 152 for hentai. Guys don't like hentai in general, like from Pornhub statistics, but the women are super into it, and it plays totally into that. There's a bunch of games that they play over there. There are these anime games on their mobile devices and on the VR games they play that are based on this as well, where it's like virtual boyfriend, right? So whether it's the ones that play on their phone, which aren't as detailed, or the VR ones, I mean, it's really taken our potential mate's time away in a much bigger way, even by what we see with the men on porn. So the women are much more subject to it, it looks like, in that sense, because there's a game aspect to that that's really compelling. Hasn't caught on with men yet. I've seen it in VR. I mean, I've seen the games that they make, because like I said, I've been with VR a long time here, and there's like this, you create your mate with the VR. Like it's gonna catch on. Like you can make any kind of girl you want. It's the shape of her breast, the color of her hair, every single aspect about her, and like go take her out for a spin, basically. I know that sounds gross, but that's where it's heading, right?
Jesus.
And that's kind of taking this whole thing that the women are already ahead of us on, because they're always ahead of us, I guess, with what they're doing with the hentai subject. I mean, so when the men get into that, I mean, yeah, it's they're already predicting that by 2025 to 2030, that the three biggest industries will be in VR. So among the biggest industries in VR for entertainment will be NFL number one, ironically, virtual NFL rather.
Right.
Games will slip to number two, and porn will be right behind, only by a couple $100 million of a multi-billion-dollar industry. So, yeah, right now porn is $100 billion or more, they estimate, in the world, and about 16, between 12 and 16, depending on your stats, for U.S., which I think is under-guessed. I think that's not. I think it's more, but we lose 16.9 to 17 billion in lost productivity from work. We actually lose more productivity at work than is being made from the industry.
In dollars.
What's that?
In dollars.
Yeah, in dollars.
Okay, let me ask you this, Doc. This may be an off-the-wall question, but let me ask you. How many, in one male ejaculation, how many sperm or potential babies are there in each? Is it millions, or how many?
I want to say it's hundreds of thousands.
hundreds of thousands. So when people talk about how many people are literally aborted, they say that like something like 50 million babies have been aborted. So that's hang on. So that's potentially 50 million babies that were aborted. 50 million chances that one of those people might have been the one who could have changed everything and saved the world. But listen to this. Now you're telling me, and how many minutes Epic Journeyman? Because I mean, every time someone's on there, there's an ejaculation.
Wait, I was undercounting. So a fertile male ejaculates between 2 and 5 milliliters of semen, and each meal there are about 100 million sperm.
100 million sperm. So every single time there's a male on Pornhub ejaculating, there's 100 million chances in that ejaculation that he could have had a child that might have been the one.
500 million, right? Five per liter, right? Or per milliliter, right?
Per mil, yeah.
So it's astronomical.
$500 million.
It's literally, it's astronomical, the amount of birth control that's going on by just installing this porn up there for free for everybody to have. And
what I wanted, and this takes the conversation off in a different tangent, but I think it is fundamentally tied to this topic. And what we've done is particularly in the West, but there's been a normalization of abortion as a form of contraceptive. And there's something fundamentally wrong with that, because it really, really does remove the responsibility, and it moves into this idea of where you're taking the biological procreative act and just turning it into entertainment. So if you goof up, for example, you can go get it sucked out, and those cells, that little fetus can get sold off and make money for the people. So there's money at every stage for these companies and corporations to extract out from this process. And
I mean, let me point to something else too, and I'll point to this. Now, the wearing of the condom and the prevention of these pregnancies or these unwanted pregnancies or these children, and the wearing of the condom. Now, this completely separates the energetic flow between the two bodies of the humans, because there's a piece of rubber that's in between us and not allowing us to actually mingle in the way that we would have we been, having, relations with somebody in a more sacred manner. But as a result of being separated like this, then really it's busting down to literally individual orgasms and having an orgasm, busting a nut. It's not about it's about that perfect second, that blink of an eye that everybody's searching for. But there is no intermingling of the energies between the two people. It's almost like being by yourself. I mean, almost like being it's a narcissistic way of having sex is to use the condom in a way, because it's almost like the woman doesn't feel the man doesn't feel the woman, and now the woman's used to the texture of this condom, man, and she's only one step away from that silicone shaped penis. So I mean, it's just like the social engineering goes down to that level, literally.
Well, I think you're right, because we're talking about the haptic suits, right? And those haptic suits, they're going to make accessories for both men and women. They're going to tie into that for these virtual sex experiences. And what are they? They're going to feel just like having a condom having sex, right? They're going to feel just like that, except that, and it's going to be normalized. It is normalized, because most people that use a condom, that's how it feels to them.
Yeah, but I just want to look. I'm not coming at this from some moral high ground. Like I remember what it was like being a teenager and trying to get laid and all these things, right?
Me too.
This is normal. But I would say that we've made some very fundamental changes in how our biology used to define and shape us, right? Once we figured out the contraceptive pill, once we normalized abortion, we've had impacts on the trajectory of populations that we're only now just beginning to realize as we see that we have these major imbalances. Couple that with this consumer-driven lifestyle where you're constantly in debt, and that they're driving home to you the idea that the child is going to be costing you money as well. We're hobbling our youngest and the people that we need to look to in 20 years, 30 years. Well, I'm going to be hunched over and shuffling around and hoping I've got grandkids, right? But I recognize there's threats on the horizon to my children, and the older I've got, the more I've come to understand what was a form of ridicule for me when I was young that they would do this was arranged marriages.
Mm-hmm.
Right? As a father with a daughter, I'm rather than sending her out into a world that's now been subverted with Grindr and pornography pouring out of every scrying mirror that is a screen, it makes sense to me that you should go down that way. So in fact, the oldest solutions that mankind have developed is in fact a sort of antidote to the worst excesses that the technological life has given us, and that is this subversion and hijacking of the sexual, the spirit, because that's your hook into the spiritual as well, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's what it was all about, wasn't it? In the Garden of Eden, the eating that apple and getting that carnal knowledge. That was the fall from grace, right? So,
well, the Tibetan Book of the Dead talks about the spirits, the new souls coming in, watching the people conceive, right? Like, not that this is true, it's just a story, right? But a lot of people believe in it. But the point being that they actually partake in the act in a way, right? I mean, they get to witness it. They choose their parents. Mm-hmm. That's part of that belief system, right? So, in a way, this idea of arranged marriages has a lot of merit in that sense too, because it makes you wonder if we've talked about it many times, that there was a technology in the past or some kind of close touch. We almost got here before. I think it's probably worse and accelerated now, but it was where they understood the concept, at least, right? That something like this may happen, and that the only way to truly propagate the human race was to do this kind of thing by some kind of agreement, because it wasn't cool for Solomon to be running around with 400 concubines and wives or whatever, and taking all the girls, right? We're talking about the spawning male earlier, the idea that this, the one guy, alpha male, having all the women.
We've worked that out, right? We realized that there's a danger to allowing that to happen where what you get the warlord that takes what he wants. Well, you develop an inherently unstable society, because the other men, and this happens in chimps, right? So you could have a really strong alpha chimp that gets all the mating rights, and but he's one. And what you find is that two lesser, I don't like this classification alpha beta as signifiers of,
but it is what it is. But I mean, people get it though.
And so you'll find that there's this constant dynamic where there are people looking at the other that has more than his fair share, more than he can use. If you've got a harem of 20 women, you're not looking at after 20 women like you should be, like nature intended. And so you've set an imbalance in the world, and
right. But you set up what's called, what we commonly refer to as the role model. So you get all these lesser players wanting to be able to be that guy with the 20 girlfriends, and maybe they can't have the body, maybe they can't get the face like he gets, but what they do is they run around and they try to get the clothes and they get the haircuts, and they go join the gym, even though they're never going to have that body, but all of those dollars that they're spending is all going in for one thing, because they want to make themselves attractive to the opposite sex, whatever that may be.
And look, there's nothing wrong inherently with that.
No, right? There isn't anything. But it is
smart.
It is the consumer economy. If you look at it across the board, how much money is spent on food and housing, the rest of it's cosmetics, haircuts, bath water, perfume, watches, pants, tennis shoes, living in the right house, in the right neighborhood, going to the right school, all those kids going into debt because they think they got to be a doctor to attract the right kind of a mate. When the real way to attract the right kind of a mate is to be the kind of person that the right kind of a mate would want to see. And I think what we see, and maybe you can help me out on this, Doc, because you probably know better than I on this. What is the advent of the alpha female now? Because we've seen this warrior princess archetype paraded through the social engineering. Women have become a little bit more masculine. Men have become a bit more feminine. And I think they're trying to meet in the middle somewhere there, where men have now become feminized enough to understand what a woman actually wants. And now a woman has become dominant enough to make sure that she gets what she wants from her man. What do you think about that, the alpha female?
You could look at it through multiple lenses, but what I would try to do is where there's nothing inherently wrong with a more matriarchal approach, depending on the climate and environment in which you live in. That happens. It happens in monkey troops, etc. And women play a critical role. But I push back very, very hard against this idea that women can do all the things that men can do, and men should be able to understand or be sympathetic and realize all the pains of women. Right? The two are distinctly different. We have very distinct bimodal distributions, meaning that we can see two humps in the graph around which male and female traits orientate, and nature has made them that way. And of course, there are some men that are going to be submissive to a more dominant woman, etc. There's all that mosaic over it. But there's been a concentrated and very purposeful attempt to remove the idea of motherhood as being a noble goal for women to reach.
Yes.
Right. And they just want that. They're just pushing this idea that the woman is going to become that CEO. When now, actually, what happens is she ends up in an office cubicle, and her most vibrant years are wasted. Right. When she could be with her children, and there's of course that has drawbacks.
That's the thing too. I want to bring it up because I think this there's a major elephant in the room in everything that's going on in our world, and that is that I think the older we are, we tend to forget, and I think we should bring it up right now. We tend to forget that people have grown up in a world where there wasn't the freedom that there was before 9/11. And people are growing up in a world where there's always porn on the internet. There's never been a time where there's a couple of, groups of people. There's never been a time when this hasn't been so. And so if you couple some of that psychology beyond, the orgasm and the having the orgasm without the child being born, and then you couple that with the social engineering of the global warming idea and the having of children being something in the future that, you don't want to just have, just regular people. You'll have to make it a discussion about it and see if having a child is even something that can be done between you and your partner. Because I don't think it's going to be I think this is all going to that place.
I don't want to. Sorry to interrupt you, Jimmy.
No,
but
jump in here.
Literally, I was reading a article yesterday from, and let me just find his name, senator from Pennsylvania, who's put forward a motion in the House in Pennsylvania. Let me just find his name here. free child limit legislation. His name is Christopher M. Rabb, sent out a memorandum to all House members regarding his legislation that will enforce reproductive responsibility among men. The bill will force men to undergo vasectomies within 6 weeks from having their third child or their 40th birthday, whichever comes first, or they have to pay $10,000. And there's a bit that I wanted to read into this that just comes across as very, very... This is his quote. So as long as state legislators continue to restrict the reproductive rights of cis women, trans men, and non-binary people, there should be laws that address the responsibility of men who impregnate them. So now we've gone from a place where we had this we threw off the shackles, right, of our fuddy-duddy grandparents. We had the swinging 60s. We've gone through the technological barrier to where there's big boy, daddy's working. Hurry up.
Yeah.
You've gone through this, and now suddenly, in light of the dogma that humans are a blight on this planet, they now want to put a child limit on you, just like they were doing in China for the last 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
We're just supposed to be all right with this. We're just supposed to take this language lying down. Look, I get it. I'm not living in the United States anymore. And I get it that it's annoying when someone's talking about your country and they're not from there. But God, I love the United States. I wish I was back there. I really do. But the way that you've allowed yourself to be subverted across so many different levels, that it's reaching this criticality right now, at this point in time, right on top of all the other shit, like the mandates coming in and people losing their jobs en masse. And now they're talking about population control, vasectomies in men. What?
I hope that's not going to happen. I don't think so, but the fact it's even being brought up is one of those things that cracks me up. Jimmy said something that cracks me up a minute ago, and because he let something slip, it was a subconscious slip, I think, because he goes, people forget, and the elephant in the room, right, in the same sentence, and the biggest matriarchal society that we know of in the animal kingdom is elephants. Right, elephants, and which is ironic, right? Because I never forget you're saying. I mean, just to tie that in. But so here's this. I was trying to think what animals have a matriarchal structure, and it turns out it's elephants, lemurs, meerkats, orcas, and those are the main ones actually.
Well,
and hyenas, and a spotted hyena. But isn't that weird that they're all from Africa?
Well.
Yeah,
monkeys,
all African. Which is that the whole Earth Mother thing's from Africa, right? Originally, Africa is it's just an ironic. I don't want to say it's ironic because that's an improper use of the word, but the fact that you have this track back to the most ancient art in matriarchies in human society, that track back to the Earth Mother image, which comes from Africa as well. Maybe it's because they saw these matriarchal animal societies along with them.
Do me a favor, because we got to take a break. I'm late on the break, so do me a favor while I'm doing that. See if you can break out how much money is spent between food and basic things that you need to live, and how much money is spent on the rest of it. Because I'm going to guarantee you the rest of it is going to overwhelm it by three times whatever we spend on food, housing, and necessities. I'll guarantee you there's going to be 3/4 more of that's being spent on us just trying to attract the right people in our lives. My name's Jimmy. It's Into the Microcosm.
It happens more often than we can imagine. In my case, I was sitting at home, and out of nowhere, I just started feeling uncomfortable. Then it got worse, and I started perspiring. I tried to ignore it, but I waited too long. The chest pain came as we were driving to the hospital emergency. I felt my life clock begin to tick. I barely survived. There was lots of damage done to my heart. What do I do now? I was lucky. I took a leap of faith and tried a 7-herb formula with hawthorn, garlic, cayenne, and more called Extendivite. Herbs have been used for thousands of years to keep us healthy. If you're not using Extendivite as a preventative supplement, maybe it's time to start. To order, call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite. Talk about things that make me. Let's talk about sex. Let's talk about sex. Let's talk about sex. Let's talk about sex.
Well, let's talk about sex for now. To the people at home or in the crowd, it keeps coming up anyhow. Don't be coy, avoid, or make void the topic, cause that ain't gonna stop it. Now please talk about sex on the radio and video shows. Many will know anything goes. Let's tell it like it is and how it could be. How it
I got your picture of me and you. You wrote I love you. I wrote me too. I see the stare at it, there's nothing else to do. Oh, it's in color. Your hair is brown. Your eyes are hazel.
Shout them out to them. It's the Vapors. I'm turning Japanese.
I'll kiss you when there's no one else around. I got your picture. I got your picture. I'd like a million of you over myself. I want a doctor to take a picture. So I can look at you from inside his leg.
Tell you what I did last night. I came home, say around 2:45. Still so high, hypnotized in a trance from this body. So buttery brown and tantalizing. You would have thought I needed help from this feeling that I felt. So shook, I had to catch my breath. Oops, there goes my shirt up over my head. Oh my, oops, there goes my skirt dropping to my feet. Oh my, ooh, some kind of touch caressing my legs. Oh my, ooh, I'm turning red. Who could this be? I tried and
I'm the hottest round. I told y'all, y'all can't stop me now. Listen to me now. I'm lasting 20 rounds. And if you want me, then come on get me now. Is you with me now? Then biggie bounce. I know you dig the way I switch my style. Holla, holla. People sing around. Now people gather round. Now people jump around. Get your freak on. 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 Get your freak on.
Monday through Friday, 10:30 Pacific, right here immediately following Clyde Lewis and Ground Zero. It is Into the Microcosm. I am Jimmy Jean. That is Epic Journeyman, and we have the outlaw doctor with us, Doc McCarran.
People you don't know, me and Timberland been high since 20 years ago. What the dealio? Now what the drillio? If you wanna battle me, then let me know. Got the feeling, son. Let me throw you some. People, here I come. Now sweat me when I'm done. We got the radio shook like we gotta go.
Get your freak on. Get your freak on. Get your freak on. Get your freak on. It's Aftermath FM. We're talking about sex tonight. We're talking about porn. We're talking about population control. We're talking about engineering a society to prefer an orgasm, and how it is achieved at this point is basically up to you, and no strings attached. I mean, there is no stigma anymore. And it's a world where potentially we belong to each other for the moment that we meet, and then after that it really doesn't matter. We can just go on about our little lives. And I mean, at the point that it's a transaction, if you think data scraping's going on, I mean, in this porn industry, the amount of data scraping that goes on, there must be some sort of psychological framework that would appear when a particular person finds a certain type of sexual activity appealing. It may, notate that that person has a certain tendency for certain psychological behaviors. I would be more than willing to bet you that that is 100% of the case in this giant experiment on the population of the world with free porn available at a screen near you. Now, unless any of you have a burning desire to jump in here for the next couple of minutes, I would like to visit something called The Great Porn Experiment by a guy by the name of Gary Wilson. And I think you'll find it quite interesting. And then we have like I said, we have a great piece from the stain left over by John McAfee. And we've scraped a little bit of that material off the ground there, and we put it under the microscope, and we're gonna let you have it when we're done here. So unless you guys have a burning desire, I'm gonna get into this.
Well, I have one quick thing to say. It seems like the whole porn industry is kind of gearing us towards a Huxleyan eugenics lifestyle, where it's sex for recreation, not procreation. So basically it's like pushing us into this lifestyle where we only use sex more for a pleasure thing than to actually propagate the species. So it makes it a little easier for them to program the next generation through their eugenics program, and basically deciding which genes to give the alphas, the betas, the deltas, and the epsilons. And yeah, it's basically getting us geared to choosing those archetypes as well, where it's like the offerings that were shown in porn are usually the alphas and the betas, like the more attractive members of society, being shown to us epsilons and deltas. Basically giving us that desire to try and achieve that, which we'll never be able to do because we're not in that caste. And it's kind of scary how much social engineering is actually put into pornography. Like I until this conversation, I never really put a lot of thought into it, but yeah, it's probably one of the greatest social engineering tools they've come across in the 20th century.
I'd have to agree.
One quick thing. So basically, also agree. I mean, like what's going to happen? You can totally see this coming, where they're going to take DNA samples from all this, pleasure sex, basically, right? And what's going to happen is, I'm talking. I'm okay now, I think. Okay, so, the eventual end game of this, in a way, you can kind of see it does play in that Huxley view, is that abortion will come to an end, right? In a sense, right? The way that we know it now, we'll have those artificial wombs, and then you will be actually breeding alphas and betas and deltas and all that stuff. You'll be selecting whatever you want. I mean, I won't say abortion will come down where the fetus will not be disposed of, but in many cases that they'll be selected. Because who's gonna own those things? Who's gonna? If it's not the parents, who's it gonna be? It's gonna be the state. It's
You've
gonna be
seen
businesses.
a decline in populations across the world as civilization takes over. Less and less children are had naturally for some reason. There's a guy that wrote a piece of software that looked at it, and the more civilized and modernized a country gets, the children.
Well, a lot of this comes from just the health standpoint. So the large family, I think it's the R type, where you have lots of children, was that it wasn't that long ago there was a chance that you were going to lose some children during the first. I don't know if you. I mean, my grandfather was one of 9, right?
Yeah.
And you expected some to be lost to disease or some other environmental pressure, and we've made it now that we can we've removed these selective pressures from the environment, and we've just put new ones, and the new ones are being driven by the people with their hands on the technology, that make the technology and have access to it, and we're the dumb cattle that just keep chewing it up.
You know the movie Idiocracy, right?
Yeah.
You're familiar with it. So there's a part in the movie where there's, two sets of people, and has these this modern couple, and they're saying, well, now's not the right time for us to have children, and they keep having these reasons why, and then they show these
hillbilly,
hillbilly white trash in the trailer park,
Dwayne.
just drinking beers and getting laid every 5 minutes, and they're just popping out babies left and right. And so what the idea was is that the population is dumbed down because only people of less intelligence are the ones that are reproducing, and the smart ones are not, and so the people are not getting into the gene pool. So but what I want to point out is we've seen a decline in the virility of the sperms that are actually coming out of the men for whatever reason, whether it's the bisphenol A or whatever the reason is that these blanks are being created. We see this real problem for a lot of guys. There's erectile dysfunction. All of a sudden, everybody's got everybody's got to take a pill to get some testosterone. Everybody's got to take a pill to get their dick hard. All this. People didn't used to have that problem, but I mean, because I don't think you needed to have this sustained erection like a piece of silicone shaped like a cock, because there's no way a man can keep his cock hard like that for that long and without medical intervention. So you see the advent of the need for that, because then no longer can a woman be satisfied the way she was, because now she's learned she can satisfy herself in a way that you could never satisfy her. And so for you to be able to measure up in bed makes a lot of guys that didn't have what it takes to be the alpha male and have the 20 girlfriends just decide it's not even worth it, because they don't want to take the chance of being humiliated by not having the right, premature ejaculation or all these things that can go wrong in these young.
It's not just that they can't get the partners, because the partners are being vacuumed up by the alpha within these hierarchies, right? Because of the technology that's available to them. So they may as well just drop out. And this is, I think it's an unprecedented time in human history, and the evolutionary pressures that are being applied to the populations. And so if we don't get a handle on it, and the breakdown, when you mess with nature, eventually it's going to turn around and bite you really hard. And from the destruction of the family to the over-sexualization of the youth to the injection of technology that's come into it, it looks like a perfect storm to me.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was driving at a minute ago, is that we've taken for granted that we've got all this sperm, all right? You see what I mean? We've got all this sperm. We can have babies anytime we want. But all of a sudden, people are starting to find out they can't have babies like they thought they could anymore. For some reason, there's fertility issues with women. There's like I say, there's ejaculation issues with men. There's shooting blanks. So all of these things leading to the same place, which is less and less population. And I'm going to put forward that in the future, I think there'll be regulated population. In other words, you don't get to have the bigger family unless you have the sustainable method of providing for that family. And I think there'll be boards of people in control of administrative processes that have to do with our health that are going to be installed as a result of some of the measures that we're going through now. And maybe even the experiment that we're going through now might be a result in some of these child of men type scenarios where babies couldn't even be born anymore naturally. You had to use some other type of a method, a breeding type method, or some sort of a test tube baby scenario?
Well, again, it's a, the older I'm getting, the more I'm understanding why those traditional avenues were there before. That the arranged marriages, the push towards getting people into families, right? That my mother and father were married when they were 18 and 19. And my father, and then my father went off to serve. Right? That was, and that used to be, I don't know, that seemed to be the pattern for historically a long time. And that's got broken somehow. Well, it's not we don't know how it's got broken, but the consequences are they're here already. You see it already. You see the young boys that are not progressing into manhood.
Yeah.
You've got entitled.
There's people running around sticking carrots up their butts. That's a normal activity nowadays. Sticking carrots up your butt.
Yeah, so this is another factor you've got to bring in, right? So now, a half decent looking woman gets on OnlyFans and she's able to generate an income for herself as well. So she's with. For everything from the state coming in and saying that we're gonna replace the father as a support mechanism. So single parent families, and this was a problem in Europe and the UK, but young women would get pregnant, and the state comes in, takes over everything, gives them a place to live, and the disincentive of getting pregnant was removed. And then you had this chipping away at the family, the idea of the nuclear family. And a lot of the problems, I would say, you could point at these people that did grow up in households that were dysfunctional, where there wasn't the healthy mother and father in the house doing the, just establishing how those patterns look.
Yeah. Well, listen, we're at the top of the hour, and I've got some really great chunks here from a couple of different TED Talks that I think everybody on the panel and as well as the audience are going to be really interested in. It's some good stuff, man. I went out and hunted this stuff down. I hacked my way through the jungle known as the internet. I swung through trees on vines. I hacked, I chopped. And I came back with some big chunks that I think everybody's going to get into here in more ways than one. But in the meantime, I want to let you know, $79 the year. You come on down, 365 days. You cut that, $79. It's pennies a day, ladies and gentlemen. And you get some of the biggest and most controversial people are broadcasting here. David Knight in the morning, 6 a.m. Okay, then you got John Brisson's on here, Gut Check. You've got Clyde Lewis, of course, Monday through Friday, 10:30 Pacific. We follow him. He's there 7 p.m. Then you got the great Billy Ray Valentine. Preceding Clyde Lewis, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So the shows, you got Steve Poikonen on the weekend. You've got somebody big coming up on this week, and I can't say who it's going to be, but I'm just telling you there's going to be a new addition to the lineup. And the weekend lineup here is really great, too. So you can help us keep on going and keep it supporting. And if you throw down on that $79, you can go over there. There's a big social community back there. You can pass stuff back and forth. There's conversations. There's no censorship. And it's a good place to be with a bunch of really, like-minded people, like I say, having discussions. And it's a great place to be, and I'm lucky to be here, and I really appreciate everybody that's sticking around and listening. And hopefully we got something to say tonight that's making people understand, it's not just for ejaculation anymore. Porn is social engineering, and there is no question.
The reviews for Extendivite are amazing. Here are some from Amazon. September 2018. Extendivite works in keeping my blood pressure in the normal range. I've been using Extendivite for many years now. May 2018. Great product. I use regularly and I rarely get sick. March 2018. This product has relieved what appeared to be angina pain in my chest and shortness of breath after climbing stairs. I'm quite happy about it. February 2018. My husband, son, and I have been using this product for a few months now, and we have noticed an improvement in our joints and blood pressure. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. To order, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822, or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
So we're here with Doc McCarran. We are here with the Epic Journeyman, and Mike from Conspirazones here, all the way up in Saskatchewan. And we're going worldwide too, because the Doc is over there in Japan. And Japan, you know, they literally, I've seen video, and this is just normal. There's nothing like kinky or weird about it. I've literally seen a video from Japan where there was women and they were having a pissing contest. Believe it or not. This is like, I mean, because, you know, you see those weird shows that they have, those game shows where people are just fighting and doing weird shit and running on, you know, just doing these weird things. It's you don't have to say anything.
Well, we're the freaks of the industry. My man Money B. The freaks of the industry. And when you see us backstage, be prepared to G.
Well, they say that birds do it, bees do it. Time to freak, Money B gets to it. Not a heavyweight, but I go 12 rounds with a jab and a stick. I'm going lick for lick, so give me the helmet. I'll be the stunt man. Just relax, and I won't front like Anita. I'm giving you the best that I got, and I'll be taking the slow.
Inspired by the last talker, I'm going to have a little song about internet porn. No, just kidding. The widespread use of internet porn is one of the fastest moving, most global experiments ever unconsciously conducted. Nearly every young guy with an internet access becomes an eager test subject. Canadian researcher Simon Lajeunesse found that most boys seek pornography by age 10, driven by a brain that is suddenly fascinated by sex. Now, users perceive internet porn as far more compelling than porn of the past. Why is that? Unending novelty. In this Australian experiment, it's not mere nudity, but novelty that gets arousal skyrocketing. Subjects watched 22 porn displays. See that spike? That's where the researchers switched to porn the guys hadn't seen before. What happened? Their erections and their brains fired up. Why all the excitement? Mother Nature likes to keep a male fertilizing willing females as long as any new ones are around. In that top line, the ram, he needs more and more time to mate with the same old ewe. But if you keep switching females, the bottom line, well, it's just not the same. He can get the job done in 2 minutes flat and keep going until he is utterly exhausted. This is known as the Coolidge effect. Without the Coolidge effect, there would be no internet porn. This old mammalian program, the Coolidge effect, perceives each novel female on a guy's screen as a genetic opportunity. To keep a guy fertilizing the screen, his brain releases the go-get-it neurochemical dopamine for each novel mate or image. Eventually, the ram will tire, but as long as the guy can keep clicking, he can keep going, and so.
We're back to dopamine again, man. Look, Timothy Leary said we literally mind controlled the American people into pleasure seekers, and now we're just running around masturbating all day seeking pleasure. and it's the ultimate. And it's the ultimate in the dopamine release. We've talked about it over and over again. I mean, at the amount of dopamine that's being released, when do we go psychotic? That's the question. And when does the dopamine overdose happen? You know?
Well,
let me continue. Let me continue. Here we go. So here we go. Let me just continue with this for a moment, Doc. I want you to jump in. Hang on one second. Just here we go.
Is dopamine. With internet porn, a guy can see more hot babes in 10 minutes than his ancestors could see in several lifetimes. The problem is he has a hunter-gatherer brain. A heavy user's brain rewires itself to this genetic bonanza, so his brain becomes associated with this porn harem. Such behaviors that are associated with this are being alone, voyeurism, clicking, searching, multiple tabs, fast forwarding, constant novelty, shock, and surprise.
So see, now here I want to stop it and let's talk about this for a second. What he's saying is a test subject develops his own personal harem. This is what you were talking about earlier, Doc, but you were meaning in the physical sense where the good-looking guy at the bar has all the girls around him while he's talking about surfing the big wave. But this guy here, he doesn't go down to the bar. He doesn't have to surf the big wave because he can develop himself this own little harem here that'll do for him exactly whatever he wants. And he doesn't have to do anything except just click.
Well, there's some that go the extra length for. I've got an echo coming back on me. But that's better. There's some that go the extra length and pay, right? So this is this whole issue with, and as a father, it terrifies me to think that there is this. Well, you could say it's the oldest way to make a living, right? But that suddenly it's become digital, and it's easy for a young girl to parade herself to the whims of what some failed Harvey Weinstein, right? That didn't make his way to the top.
Let me ask you a question. Now, don't be offended by this question because it's an offensive question. Okay, but I want to ask it because I want to get guys' opinion on this now. What if somebody had a male or a female child, and that child decided that they were going to do something where they masturbated on camera in front of the camera, but they didn't actually physically have sex with anyone, so they were just acting and doing this for money, daddy, mommy. This is my job. I'm not having sex with anybody. Okay, so physically I'm not defiling myself in any way, but what I'm doing is I'm performing on this stage called the internet where I make money doing it. So is there something, because honestly, is there anything from the moral code? I would say that would fall within the line. So you'd be in a catch-22 conversation with your daughter or your son, wouldn't you?
Oh, I would say this, that just as it would be, you would be stepping out of ethical bounds where you standing on street corners. Spiritually, you're doing the same thing to yourself. Should you be doing it to hundreds of people a day that are going to pay you on an OnlyFans? You're selling part of your soul, and this is the whole issue with this weaponized pornography that's being pushed everywhere in the modern age. And it's not like they don't know this. We had this thing yesterday. Was it yesterday with just Facebook about how they knew which parts of the algorithm to ramp up to get more engagement, even though they knew that it would cause teen suicide and all other sorts of problems. They would do it because the profit came first, and it didn't matter, and these people got chewed up in the corporate machine. And that would be my appeal to my daughter as I bring my children up, is to explain to them, look, there is this, You don't have to go through all the steps I had to come to this understanding about the world. I can let you know that behind the shiny facade, there's some dark people and individuals.
Dude, I'll be willing to go far out on the limb. I'll go far out on this thin limb on this tree, and I'll say, and I'll put it out here and right now, I say every millisecond of activity on this internet has been one giant psychological operation from the beginning, and one giant data scraping operation that's gotten to us where we are today, because nobody knows what cognitive liberty even is. Walk up to somebody on the street and ask them if they know what cognitive liberty is. Call your congressman or your senator and ask to speak to him, and ask the question, sir, do you know what cognitive liberty is? No, they don't know, and the reason they don't know is because everybody is stupefied with their pecker in one hand and the mouse in the other hand.
A guy once asked, "Are we the first generation to masturbate left-handed?" Now, real sex, in contrast, is courtship, touching, being touched, smells, pheromones, emotional.
That generates what? Serotonin, because that generates happiness, right? It's not just pleasure, and dopamine is pleasure, right, Doc? So, I mean, the dopamine is the difference between dopamine and serotonin. According to this dude who wrote a book called The Hacking of American Mind, is he said the biggest distinction between the two is one is happiness and one is pleasure. So the things in life that are free are happiness, like when you turn around and see your child playing in the room with you, that's free, it's happiness. But happiness doesn't make money in the big consumer mechanism that we call Earth. So the thing is, we need to seek pleasure. And all of these things here are making us become addicted to that dopamine instead of seeking happiness. Everybody wants to be happy, but they think that they gotta seek pleasure to get it, and they think they gotta spend money on the pleasure seeking in order to get the pleasure.
Oh, but it's more complex than that, Jimmy, because we've deified hedonism, and when you have cultures and societies that are not under sort of, they're not the Soviet Union anymore, and you can't, and you can go back to the old records. I mean, I don't know how accurate it is, but like everyone literally was grassing on everyone to the Stasi with respect to trying to get favors from the state. Right, but in a situation where you've suddenly removed that, and we pride ourselves on having this free libertarian approach to societies. What happens when people have reached a specific level of material success that they're not worried about their paycheck next week? They're not worried about getting food into the cupboard. They're not worried about the payment for the car because they've managed to achieve all these steps for the material. And they know, and this is why you've had something like the Epstein phenomenon. They know that they can get people by pandering to their peccadillos, for want of a better word. Right. That their subversions, and it's the things that you can't just randomly pay for, right? Because if you've managed to get the money and you've got the car and you've got the girl, etc., you've won. You've won the evolutionary game at that point. Yet because of this idea that hedonism and your right to it, the same with the deification of selfishness.
Well, listen, I got a lot of really important clips I want to get to. I have I've got a porn actress discussion with her, but I want to go. Let me continue with this clip. The Doc is going to be tied up here for a second. I want to get to some of this. Go ahead, Doc. Why don't you take about a couple minutes if you need to, and I'm going to get a couple minutes of this in real quick. We only got 45 minutes left, and at the bottom of this hour, we're going to end in our rebroadcast because we rebroadcast for 2 hours tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. So there's going to be 30 minutes of this show that people that are listening on Aftermath.fm are not going to be able to hear. If you want to hear that extra 30 minutes, you'll be able to find it wherever you find podcasts. Tomorrow, the full show will be in podcast. You'll be able to find it in the free podcast. You listen to it with ads over there. If you want to hear it without ads, become a member and cruise on back there behind the velvet rope. Mom's Jimmy. It's in the microcosm. We're talking about the great porn experiment.
Interaction with a real person. Now, what happens when our guy finally gets with a real mate? Well, researchers don't know much about the effects of internet porn for several reasons. In 2009, when Lajeunesse tried to study porn's impact, he couldn't find any college-age males who weren't using it. So the first serious dilemma is that studies have no control groups. Now, this creates a huge blind spot. Imagine if all guys started smoking at age 10 and there were no groups that didn't. We would think that lung cancer is normal for all guys. Undaunted by his lack of non-users, Lajeunesse asked 20 male students, "Is internet porn affecting you or your attitudes towards women?" Their answer, "Nah, I don't think so." But they've been using it for about a decade then, pretty much non-stop. This is like asking a fish what it thinks about water. Which brings us to a second problem. Now, researchers haven't asked porn users about the symptoms Zimbardo described in The Demise of Guys. Arousal addiction symptoms are easily mistaken for such things as ADHD, social anxiety, depression, concentration problems, performance anxiety, OCD, and a host of others. Now, healthcare providers often assume that these conditions are primary, perhaps the cause of addiction, but never really the result of an addiction. As a consequence, they...
Well, let me stop it there, Doc, because I want to go back to what he said there, because I think he just said something that you can talk about, eh? So what did let me back
the
this.
Addiction, you mean?
Yeah. Let me back this up. Listen to this here.
Arousal addiction symptoms are easily mistaken for such things as ADHD, social anxiety, depression, concentration problems, performance anxiety, OCD, and a host of others.
What about that there?
Well, the problem is it's not a problem. It's just a matter of fact that each one of those neurological states are accompanied by a whole plethora of neurological illnesses. It's disambiguating the cause of it. Now, look, I agree we're in uncharted territory with 10-year-olds having unbridled access to hardcore pornography. It's this is not the innocent times of my youth, where literally the closest you got was finding a scrap of page under a bush.
I know.
Sometime, right?
Well,
that was a glorious day if you found that.
And the Playboy Mansion was instrumental in sparking the sexual revolution, and starting to get things going in a direction and getting a conversation during the hippie movement, the free love, this whole thing, and moving into the we belong to each other, and there is no father and mother anymore. Those words are taken away, just like some of the words will be taken away now. They're trying to change the lexicon, and to change the lexicon around a word structure that will fit in the future when having babies is not going to be just a matter of you getting together with somebody anymore. It's going to take a permission slip from some. Go ahead.
You got to get to this point, and so I want to just lay out an anecdote that I had when I was living in the US. That so when I arrived there, I first landed in Philadelphia. Great city, loved it. Loved the people, down to earth, and had a great time. Then I got a job in San Francisco, my PhD took me to a lab there. What I saw there, that wasn't about being free or libertine in any way. That what I saw was a targeted psychological operation to warp people around the idea of their own sexual identity, that's all they became, and it consumed their life. And I remember one time walking into this guy's house that we were, well, it was a friend of my wife, and it was her boyfriend, and we were arranging to go out, and we get to his apartment, and we walk in, and there's pornography just playing on his TV, like it was just nothing, right? And at this point, I'm starting to get desensitized a little bit to San Francisco, but look, man, I had to say something back then. I was just like, yeah, you know what, dude, this is. I said it's creepy, right?
Was it like a dinner party or something? I mean, what was it? Or
well, we were waiting to just go out. So we were meeting up, and we were going to get something to eat, and then we were just going to go out on the town. But just
maybe they were swingers, and they were just trying to see how you'd react, you know.
So you wore a pineapple shirt.
Yeah, you weren't wearing a pineapple Hawaiian shirt, were you?
No, but
Okay.
I had to say something, and call me an old square fuddy duddy. I don't know, but it just came across as a bit fucking creepy.
It's creepy, man. It is, you know. I mean, like the thing is like people's sexual preferences, whatever they're up to, is up to them in their bedrooms. Like, you know, it used to be you close the door and that's it.
Yeah.
I close the door and that's what I do in there. And then it's like when I go to the voting booth, I pull the curtain around me and I vote because it's my private moment. So my private moment and what I do with my partner sexually and what I'm into is up to me and my partner. What I do, it shouldn't be up to you. You shouldn't get to decide what I do, just like no one should get to decide what they do with the current situation. This thing is you know, more and more everything's just an open book because the generation after 9/11 has no privacy and they don't care. They don't feel like they're losing anything. They don't feel like it's their freedom that's being lost by exposing every single aspect of their lives on every single social media platform they can as they're growing up. You know, these are children whose past is going to be in the cloud, man.
Yeah,
My
and
past
look,
isn't in the cloud.
We don't know how to deal with it. It's the first time we've ever been faced with something like this. And look, I was no angel growing up, dude.
Me
I got
neither.
into all sorts of trouble.
Me neither.
Right?
But what I'm saying is we didn't have
But
a
it's
cloud.
gone. It's very
gone.
difficult, right, for people to sort of dig up all the fuck ups I had.
Well, check it out. No, it doesn't. The fuck ups that you had before there was a cloud don't matter because the only place they exist is in your head. Nobody else knows about them because there wasn't something detailing it Monday through Friday, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, every millisecond, watching every single thing that you do, and going, you know, this couple generations of kids has been posting everything about themselves, and including a bunch of stuff that their parents probably don't even know that they're posting. You know, there's an expose of everyone's personal business on the internet 24/7. So the thing is what you're saying is a completely right. And you know what? I wanted to bring something up because, you know, a long time ago, you know, this conversation. This conversation we're having right now is just like one for younger people. Our conversation we're having right now is just like the one that was had back in the 50s. When TV was just getting going and everything was just sort of the whole, you know, social engineering mechanisms were coming into focus. And the very first guy out there on the platform was a dude who was called the King, man. And the old people said he was shaking his leg on TV. And they didn't want it because it looked sexual. looked like he was sexualizing something. He was having sex. It was the devil, they said. They said it was going to lead to the destruction of society, just like we're talking about tonight. And there is a generation that's listening to this conversation just like the young people were listening to the old people back then. And they say, oh, man, you don't know what you're talking about, man. Elvis just played some rock and roll.
The saddest song I've ever heard in my life for you. So just bear with me for a minute. Thank you. Take it. Hear that lonesome whippoorwill. He sounds too blue to die.
The king, man. I'm just so lonely, baby. I'm just so lonely. I'm just so lonely. I could die. It's Aftermath FM. Here. Let's take a listen to this because I know you guys are going to leave in 2 minutes. And if you want to hear the rest of this, you're going to have to go over to Aftermath FM and spark up a membership, man. Come on down. $79 for the year. Now, take a listen to this porn star. She's got a little backstory for being a porn star.
It's not going to matter what magazine says about me. It's not going to matter what TV show says I'm a bad influence on youth. It's really about continuing to just follow my dreams and passions and be myself and share my voice.
In 2021, everybody wants to share their voice. And the most important thing is to be yourself, ladies and gentlemen. Don't forget that. This is 50 Shades of Grey, talking to Sasha Grey, porn star.
I was in college and I was working 6-7 days a week, and if I was by myself, not studying, I was probably watching porn. And it was like, yeah, I like it, and yeah, I can get off, but I felt like there was a creative component missing, and I also had, different ideas of what sex was, and I felt sick. You know what I mean? I felt sick to my stomach. I'm like, yeah, I'm not supposed to think this way. I was the oldest out of all my friends to lose their virginity. I was 16 and a half. I know that's funny, but I was a senior in high school. I kind of had this very male-driven mentality, like, I don't want to love a boy to have sex with him, but at the same time I was so conflicted internally, like I didn't know, how do I go about doing that and just feel safe and feel like I'm in control. So for me, getting in the business was a way to continue exploring those things safely, but then also I kind of just had this awakening, and I started to really understand the sexual revolution that I so idealized. It doesn't matter what you say to your parents. No parent wants their kid doing porn. I didn't tell them until I had been here for 2 weeks, because I want to get down there and get started and then tell them. And my mom is Catholic,
So hey, I want to bring you back a couple years. Let's call it 7-8 years ago. There was this whole thing like party like a rock star. Okay. Then it was party like a porn star. And then you saw t-shirts down at Target that fit like 11-year-olds that say porn star, and they're pink, and they say porn star on the front. So, I mean, what's the anxiety point, man? I mean, when do people get a clue? That's the thing. I know for a fact there's Halloween costumes that have poles for your little girls to be strippers, Halloween costumes. You know what I'm saying? Not that there's anything wrong with being a stripper or a dancer. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. But what I am saying is, at least wait till you're 18 to, be exposed to it or something. I mean, the innocence of children is lost and stolen way beyond just the physical destruction, via these predators. There's more going on than just the physical thing that people are appalled at. People should realize that the innocence is being lost and stolen in ways that don't represent physical. These are mental. These are children that are 10 years old that have been exposed to more pictures and information of killing, sex, everything that you can possibly imagine, and you as a person and just walking down the street in your life would never experience. In order to gain the kind of a brain that you would have as a result of going through a life, for example, say you live 60 years of your life in a really fucked up neighborhood, like South, be a Southie. Go someplace and you're living low brow. Go live that life and see what that's like. There's a representation of that, but you don't have to physically see it. You don't have to physically get to it to be manipulated into having the psychological effect of that. So we're all manipulated from grave till grave, no? It's a grave situation, isn't it? It's at this point, is it not obvious that the whole fabric that held our society together has been completely and utterly destroyed, and they're going to try to rebuild it with a synthetic representation of what it used to be? You don't need to be in love anymore. You just need to meet up and have that moment. And now it's just the moment, and then get on with the rest of your life. You don't have to get caught up. It's almost like a prostitutional transaction. Because, when it gets to a point, and don't get me wrong, I'm just putting this out as information, but I'm just saying, listen, if a man is going to meet a woman, say for a man likes a woman and he wants to meet one, and he's going to go out and date her, he's going to go out, take her out here, there, whatever, coffee here, flowers there, dinner, let's go over here, let's do this. He spends, $300, $400, $500, before he gets a yes or a no. Right? So, then he could take that same $500, go buy himself a girlfriend experience, and then get on with the rest of his life. He doesn't have to deal with the taking out the trash or listening to his wife yelling at him about leaving up the toilet seat or none of that. So, in modern society where you own nothing and love it, transactional relationships seem to be more what's going to be in effect, more than an invested relationship where you actually care about somebody and you actually want to share with them. Go ahead, you guys. I know you want to get in on that.
Well, I just want to say that's the atomization that they want, right? So as they break down the family, the nuclear family, they want you atomized. And the transactional relationships is a brilliant way of defining where we're moving to. And the idea, the romantic ideas have been lost.
Yeah.
Because it's all coming down to, as you say, the visual stimulation and being able to find novelty in it. And we had this discussion before about this, what the dopaminergic system is doing in the brain. And some is reward, but there's this issue with saliency and novelty in the environment, and it's a very, very powerful neural circuit and network that they know they can hijack with sex and porn, and it's been unashamedly so, such that the Protestant, we used to have what was her name in the UK? Mary Whitehouse, I think her name was. They used to just, sort of be on there as a, oh my God, it's terrible what we're doing and showing on TV, etc. And in retrospect, she was right, because now you've suddenly got you've got queers coming out, you've got all sorts of deviancy being shoved into the mainstream, and the biologically, you've still got a distribution of what is normal, and those people are being shut out of the conversation. Those are the people that are actually having the kids that are being preyed on by the deviants that this system is making.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, it just, the thing is, like we were just saying a minute ago, and I mean, I'm sure you can attest to this, and you might have even done studies on this yourself, is that the effects on the human brain, what comes through the eyeball, the brain doesn't differentiate. This is what I've seen and, been exposed to, so if I'm wrong, please tell me. But I've been under the impression for a lot of years that from stuff that I saw and heard that the brain doesn't differentiate between a movie and reality. So when you see somebody getting stabbed to death on a screen and you witness that with your own two eyes, that your brain doesn't differentiate. And so that's almost like you're having that experience yourself, in the sense that it would be contained within your wisdom structure inside of your brain. When you observe a situation and you're trying to solve a problem, certain things come, the things that you've learned through your life come through your mind to help you make that decision. So is there some kind of correlation between the earlier, because look, let's face the facts, man. Let's face facts. Number one, when the TVs first came out, those TVs were babysitters for that generation. That was the first generation of latchkey kids where there were single moms and they were working. Moms were working then, and it wasn't okay to be a single mom back then. Single moms were working. They didn't have babysitters. They couldn't pay people. They sat kids in front of TVs. Same shit's going on now, except for they're putting pads or phones in those kids' hands earlier and earlier. It's like you used to have a rattle. Look, baby, look. They don't do that anymore. They fucking shove an iPad in their face and go, look at this, SpongeBob or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Look, oh, cards and stuff. My kids right now, you can, behind me, if you could, literally over my shoulder, all three of my kids are playing computer games, Roblox, Minecraft, and watching YouTube and those games. But so far, because I am watching, I'm sitting next to them and watching them play on a PC, so I can see the screen. Okay, I get some idea of what it is that they're doing, and I'm pretty sure I've managed to make sure that there's not too much in the way of subversion getting into
I got you. I understand what you're saying. I understand it. But I also want to point out that children growing up in that way, their brains develop differently than people that were born at a time when that didn't happen. In other words,
I regret my kids not being able to have the childhood I did, where I was out.
It can be eliminated too, just as easy, because the kind of stuff that you learn when you're a kid out there, you're running around. When your kids used to be able to run wild, run free, and they weren't hanging carrots out of their ass. They were out building forts and riding bikes, and they were out doing their thing and running unobserved by anybody but their other friends. And they created peer groups and structures and, these things. But now everything's developed to where it's mostly happening on screens. And so there is no banging. There is no building a treehouse and learning about banging your finger with a hammer. Yeah. Okay, you can build a bunch of cities with video games, but you never had a hammer in your hand, so you couldn't maybe. But see, those kids also, because they played those video games and all that, they'd probably be able to design a super sweet treehouse and build it in an easier way than we ever thought of, simply because of the neural pathways that are burned in their brain from using that technology as a tool to achieve a certain goal. You'll see a whole bunch of redeveloping of the mousetrap going on across the internet. You see all these stupid I've always had a belt. I've always liked belts. I always had a pillow. I always liked them. I invented a new pillow here. It's the new pillow for the new people that realize that you can't sleep like that anymore. You have to sleep with your head like in a certain way. So we didn't know that before, but now I'm a modern dude, and I made you a square pillow. Forget the old pillow. The new pillow is square. See, that's just how it happens, right? We don't have much time. Let me.
Outro with McAfee.
Yeah, we got to get to McAfee, but listen, ladies and gentlemen, it's into the microcosm. We're here, Dr. Karen. Tell everybody where they can find you, Doc.
Go to my website, McCairn Dojo, MCCAIRN Dojo, like Karate Dojo.com. There you'll find access to when I stream, and I'm streaming most days. I would say nearly every day, but I've had a few days off the last couple of days. But and I go through a lot of these complex topics, and I try to interact with the chat as much as possible.
Nice.
And so everyone's welcome, and be there or be square.
There you go. All right, here we go.
That's where the guilt comes from. And my dad was just like, follow your goals and don't fuck up. And it was all in the subtext, like, I'm gonna be really fucking disappointed if you fuck up and do something stupid and make the wrong mistakes. I showed a series of photos to my literary agent in 2007. And I had been taking photographs on set, just document my environment each day. They were just like for me to look back on when I was older. For me, it was about self-examination in these self-portraits. Some of them look more like a documentary style photo, but they were completely conceived of. And it's funny because you could say like, no, that's totally candid, right? No, it's not. Or this totally looks like something post-sex. No, it's not. I think what for me is kind of important is that it leaves people guessing. I think it shows misconceptions about the adult industry that don't apply to everybody. Right now I'm really focusing on proving myself as an actor. So
we could make the transition from blur the line between porn and just regular movies. In other words, how far away from we are, like when is there going to be a new Weinstein and say, you know what, come out and go, you know what, man, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do a regular movie like I normally do, but instead of there just being like soft core in there, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna throw in the hardcore shit, sex scenes in my movies from now on. And I don't care if I get an R rating. Matter of fact, that'll give me some street cred, and I'll probably get a whole bunch of people, just bootlegging it off the internet at 1995 or whatever. So, I mean, the whole internet it's a marketing tool from fucking beginning to end, ladies and gentlemen. Now, nothing against her. She's doing her thing. Lots of girls move to Los Angeles, want to become actresses, but they end up over in Sherman Oaks in the Valley doing porn. And lots of these dudes, many dudes across the planet, see these porns, never once even think that the person that's in it is a human being. There is no human being being seen in porn so what kind of idea are you generating in the eyes of these young boys? What this guy said start at 6 years old, and they got arousal addiction. You know what I'm saying? Arousal addiction. Listen, we don't have much time, Doc. Stand by.
Now, healthcare providers often assume that these conditions are primary, perhaps the cause of addiction, but never really the result of an addiction. As a consequence, they often medicate these guys without really inquiring about if they have an internet addiction. So guys never realized that they could overcome these symptoms simply by changing their behavior. Now, the third problem is it's hard to believe that sexual activity can cause addiction because sex is healthy. But internet porn is not sex. Internet porn is as different from real sex as today's video games are from checkers. Watching a screen full of naked body parts won't automatically protect one from arousal addiction. In this Dutch study, here's the title, they found that, in fact, of all activities on the internet, porn has the most potential to become addictive. Here's why. This ancient program, the reward circuit, evolved to drive us towards natural rewards, such as sex, bonding, and food. As a consequence, extreme
Universe 25, Universe 25, Universe 25. Remember that?
Versions of natural rewards have a unique ability to capture us. For example, high-calorie foods or hot, novel babes give us extra dopamine. Too much dopamine, though, can override our natural satiation mechanisms. For example, give rats unlimited access to junk food, and almost all of them will binge to obesity. This is also why 4 out of 5 Americans are overweight and about half of those are obese. That is, addicted to food. Now, in contrast to natural rewards, drugs such as cocaine or alcohol only hook about 10% of users, whether they are rats or humans. This binge mechanism for food or sex was once an evolutionary advantage. In essence, it is getting it while the getting is good. Now, you can think of wolves packing away 20 pounds of meat per kill, or it's mating season and you're the alpha male. What if mating season never ends? All those hits of dopamine can tell your brain to do 2 things. First, they say, man, you have hit the evolutionary jackpot. Second, they kick in a molecular switch called delta phos-B. I know it's a fancy word, but dopamine kicks in delta phos-B, and that starts to accumulate in the brain's reward circuit. Now, with excess chronic consumption of drugs or natural rewards, this buildup of delta phos-B starts to alter the brain and promotes a cycle of binging and craving. If the binging continues, the delta phos-B builds up and it can lead to brain changes seen in all addicts. So the dominoes are excess consumption, excess dopamine, delta phos-B, brain changes. One of the first changes is a numb pleasure response. It kicks in, and so everyday pleasures really don't satisfy a porn addict. At the same time, other physical changes in the brain make the brain hyperreactive to porn. Everything else in the porn user's life is sort of boring, but porn is super exciting. Finally, his willpower erodes as his frontal cortex changes. I can't emphasize this enough.
This is your
All addictions share these same brain changes and the same molecular switch that kicks them in, delta phos-B. Now, scientists have used brain scans to measure these changes in drug addicts. Up here, these scans show a reduced pleasure response in drug addicts. These and several other changes have also been seen in gambling addicts, food addicts, very recently in video game addicts, and now in internet addicts. I apologize for filling up this slide with brain studies. Just notice the dates, but I want you to know that they exist. So far, all brain research points in only one direction. Constant novelty at a click can cause addiction. Now, we know this because when scientists examine former internet addicts, they found that these brain changes were reversing themselves. Unfortunately, none of these studies isolate porn users, but they do include them.
I date younger men, predominantly men in their 20s.
And when I date younger men, I have sex with younger men. And when I have sex with younger men, I encounter very directly and personally the real ramifications of the creeping ubiquity of hardcore pornography in our culture. So in an era where hardcore porn is more freely and widely available on the internet than ever before, and where kids are therefore able to access it at a younger and younger age than ever before, there is an entire generation growing up that believes that what you see in hardcore pornography is the way that you have sex. And this is particularly exacerbated because we live in a puritanical double standards culture where people believe that a teen abstinence campaign will actually work, where parents are too embarrassed to have conversations about sex with their children, and where educational institutions are terrified of being politically incorrect if they pick up those conversations. And so it's not surprising that hardcore pornography de facto has become sex education. Now, as a mature, experienced, confident older woman, when I encounter this, I have no problem realizing that a certain amount of re-education, rehabilitation, and reorientation has to take place.
Smartphones, both iOS and Android, are infected with keystroke logging software. This is a known fact. Over half of all smartphones, both iOS and Android, are infected with keystroke logging software. This is a known fact. People pay these pornography sites for the ability to put their key logging software on their phones. How do you think they make their money? It costs millions of dollars to maintain these massive databases and have the bandwidth to disperse this pornography, and yet you don't pay? Yes, you are paying. While you are watching your phone is watching you. This is just a fact of life. The operating system is designed specifically to watch you, listen to you, find out where you are in order to help you. It needs to know who your friends are. It needs to know what you're saying in your text messages. It needs to listen to you sometimes. And so you're looking at your phone and you have all of these facilities, but it is the world's greatest spy device, designed as a spy device. Now, there's nothing wrong with that as long as the person spying on you is spying on you for benign reasons, meaning maybe they just want to sell you something. I can choose to say no. But hackers use those same facilities. They are built into the operating system. So if a hacker gets access to those facilities, they may choose to empty my bank account without my permission or knowledge, or to steal my identity, or to start charging things on my credit cards, or if I have a Bitcoin wallet or an Ethereum wallet, they can empty my wallets. This is the facts. This is not science fiction. This is not me being paranoid. The antivirus paradigm is no longer functional. It doesn't work. I said this 10 years ago.
There are three takeaways from this. First, Foresta is describing a classic addiction process, gradual desensitization. Second, internet porn is qualitatively different from Playboy. Widespread youthful ED has never been seen before. And finally, ED is often the only symptom that gets these guys' attention. The question is, what less obvious symptoms are they missing? Most don't figure that out until after they quit. Here's a guy in his late 20s. I've been to psychologists and psychiatrists for the last 8 years, have been diagnosed with depression, severe social anxiety, severe memory impairment, and a few others. Have tried Effexor, Ritalin, Xanax, Paxil, dropped out of 2 different colleges, been fired twice, used pot to calm my social anxiety. I've been approached by quite a few women, I guess due to my looks and status, but they quickly flew away due to my incredible weirdness. I've been a hardcore porn addict since age 14. For the last 2 years, I've been experimenting and finally realized that porn was an issue. I stopped it completely 2 months ago. It has been very difficult, but so far incredibly worth it. I've since quit my remaining medication. My anxiety is non-existent. My memory and focus are sharper than they've ever been. I feel like a huge chick magnet, and my ED is gone too.
I learned that.
I seriously think I had a rebirth, a second chance at life. This is why pockets of guys are appearing all over the web, bodybuilding sites, sports sites, pickup artists.
You're not alone, and don't give up. We'll see you tomorrow night. We're clear from the network. Sorry about that. I just had to stop the recording there. So, hey, thanks for being here. That was really, man, that was a great conversation. I had a good time. Yeah, I had a good time, man. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, it was a good one.
Yeah, man. Hey, Mike, man, bro, you think you could pin that bad boy?
Yeah, I'm just getting it ready right now.
Badass. Well, it's cool, too, because that last 30 minutes, if they want to listen to it, they got to cruise over to the free podcast thing over there.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll be able to listen to the third, because I made sure they knew that the other 30 minutes would be there over there, which I never did before. So I didn't think about it until today, until right then. So cool, man. Maybe people will go cruise over and listen to it. Yeah, man. I had fun. Everybody over here in the chat's digging it. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Chad. Thanks, S90 for being here.
I just think it's great. We'll get the outro with the conversation about strokes. Keystrokes, but still.
Well, I mean, listen, I know, do you guys want to, I mean, we're more than welcome to hang out here for a bit. I need to personally go cruise outside and, take a leak here and make some coffee. But if you guys want to hang out and talk some more, I'm up for it.
I can hang out because there's some important points.
Yeah, please
do a second part to this. But
well, yeah, I mean, I can start recording when I come back if you want, and we can just do it right now, man. Because I mean, and I'll put it up as a behind the wall part 2, behind the paywall over there for people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, sure.
I mean, if you want to, I mean, I don't know. Do you want to, or do you want to just wait?
Yeah, I mean,
do it live?
It's an important topic that needs.
Yeah, I mean, I put a bunch of that shit up there, food for thought, but we didn't have time in between for you to jump in and add commentary, because I know you had a lot of things to say, because I was watching your eyes when you were listening to it. So I knew that some points came up you wanted to talk about. So I mean, I'd be stoked to stick around and and Epic, Epic and Mike, you guys are here, so just hang out. And let me just go make some coffee and hang out with the doc. I'll start recording right now. Okay, ready? Here, I'm gonna restart the recording. Here we go. Right now. Here we go. All right, so I'll be right back. I'm going to head and check the perimeter. All right?
Right on. You're going to take the iPad with you for the light, right? So you can see.
Yeah, I'll take, but my iPad's going dead because it's been laying on the floor here. I don't know what we hit on TalkStream Live. Hopefully we were somewhere good. I never looked.
8, I think.
Badass. As long as we're in the top 10, that's all I care about. Badass. All right, I'll be right back. So the doc's here, Mike's here, you're here. And anybody else that comes over and joins us, why don't you jump in here, Epic, and I'm going to go bone out here and grab myself some coffee.
Yeah, we got the brain chemistry thing for Kevin to get into. Obviously, there's a lot there, in the compulsions and all kinds of get focused that way, right? But I'm really thinking also about that idea of the models and the modeling and how you have these replacements for human beings. I mean, basically, you're making your own model. You're like right now they started with the actual porn actresses and making holographic models of them that you could subscribe to or buy. This I saw this come up back in 2017, I think, and it was really starting to roll in 2019. It was about ready to launch, and then the pandemic happened. And I pay attention to that kind of thing just because it's part of the technology for VR, right? It's one of the things that they're working on. In fact, one of the best VR things they ever made actually was an English company that made these 3D models, and they weren't pornographic really. They didn't start out that way anyway. But they were incredibly realistic and lifelike. They even made it to where you could touch them and their skin moved. But they're actual photographed models. So this is where the technology was going. But then what they started doing after that was making the actual polygon high res models that weren't based on that. And that's where we talk a little bit about how people are able to create their own, and so this is a highly dangerous thing because it's not just going to be your normal human models anymore. People make whatever they want because some kind of monstrosity, right? And that's perversion in its highest order. I mean, you start getting into things like bestiality and all kinds of things that people could just do because they have the graphic library to go build them from.
Yeah, and that's something that's been normalized as well. That's the furries and that's something that I do keep an eye on because of Roblox. Right, and that's definitely there in the environment of that game.
Oh,
right?
Totally is.
And
totally is. Roblox, it's an interesting landscape in gaming for sure. Like, oh man, if people who have kids, yeah, it's an interesting minefield, that Roblox. I've heard so many bad things about it. I've also heard a lot of good stuff, but a lot of bad stuff with Roblox.
Yeah, and it comes down to this, as you were saying, just building that they're customizing themselves, and so it's this idea of constant change as a reward, and it's this novelty pathways, etc. But I'm sort of the opinion that unless something radical changes, the kids are going to be. They have to learn to adapt to these machines. I've got some echo coming back. I have to wait for Jimmy, sound engineer Jimmy. But do you say to kids, no, you're not gonna touch the computer, or do you monitor it and try to show and try to explain them what's wrong and what's right? And that's basically what I do. If I see something that's mixed up, I'm like, oh, I just say, that's not very nice, is it? And it seems to work. It's not. I mean, I don't know whether it's the ideal solution, but we're in a situation where there's no kids playing out on the street of an evening. They're not. When I was a kid, you used to have someone come knock on your door, holding a football, and you'd go and play football in the park till it got dark, and then you went home, and then maybe you played some video games. But this is we're in a novel, very novel, and potentially psychologically damaging period, and I think just ignoring it and banning it is a way just to store up problems. Can people hear me? Is the call still going?
Yeah. I think your approach with like actually sitting down with the kids and explaining, hey, like this isn't how a normal person behaves, kind of thing. I think that's a really good thing to be doing, because like one of the things I see with a lot of parents that I know, it's almost like the electronics, like TV, video games, things like that, are kind of a replacement for actually being involved in the kids' lives, kind of thing, like seeing what they're doing. It's like a babysitter for them. And
but there's also the issue that the kids like that experience, right? It's tough for me. It's tough for me to say, don't do this. You're gonna become an internet addict, right? For example, they don't understand that.
No.
And so right now, they play, but then they realize there's a stop point where they have to do homework, and then they have to go to bed. I mean, my eldest is problematic for sort of sneaking and looking at computers whilst, if I fall asleep, she'll come and watch YouTube, and it's that's a problem to deal with. But it's not too out of hand for the moment. And there's no rule book, man. You gotta figure it out day by day.
Yeah, that's the thing with a lot of the stuff. Like, even for us adults, there's no rule book for it, right? So it's basically just trying to figure out how to cope with it as we go along. Kind of the basic human experience in a way, basically coping with your environment and surroundings the best that you can and hope you can survive.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if it's naive to just think, well, no, I'm at the point where I don't expect any of the things that were available to me as I, reach maturity, 18 and adulthood. All those opportunities that I had, I don't think are going to be there for my children.
Oh, no, I don't think so either.
Well, I was going to say the biggest thing was, love it or hate it. My university education didn't cost me any money. Time, but it was free, essentially. And that's a huge factor. And it was a time before they turned the universities into essentially sinks for youngsters with mental health issues, right? And I don't think we'll ever go back to that world anymore. What do we do in the meantime? Well, I'm of the opinion, in the situation that I'm in, I don't want my kids. I'm not fussed about my kids' career paths, etc. I'm more focused on trying to just keep the family unit together for as long as possible. Hopefully the kids grow up so that they want to be near family. I'm away from my family, and I don't think I'll ever see them again, because I won't be able to get on a plane. I refuse to get any of these IDs. I won't get. I'm certainly not taking any of their shots as they currently stand. And well, the future, the long-term future is uncertain, and I wouldn't expect everyone to be doing something so extreme as what I'm doing.
Yeah, I know. Like, for myself, that's the thing. Like, especially with like the current situation that we're in, I'm looking at it's like, well, a lot of my family, like especially like my mom, she lives 6 hours away from where I'm currently at, and go and visit her, it's a bit of a hassle because, one, I don't drive myself personally due to an eye condition, and so like I'd have to be able to get like bus ride or train trip down to where she's at, and I'm ineligible for that right now because I'm not in the mindset to get the vaccinations because I don't trust them. I'm sorry, I just don't trust the technology behind them. Sure, the mRNA stuff's been around for a while, but it's based on CRISPR tech, and we still don't really know what the outcome's going to be altering the human genes on this kind of level. Like, I'm sorry, I just don't trust it.
Well, I mean, I can Jimmy, I don't know if you need to work on the sound a little bit. There's some echo coming back.
I got the echo coming back.
That's because I came back. The Navy.
That was while you're gone.
The Navy's hit me with one of those echo machines. Hang on a second. Let me figure this out. So, are you still hearing it now?
Check, check, check. Seems better.
That's good.
So
I'm here,
with
but I'm here. I'm listening, but I'm just gonna be sipping my coffee and turning my mic off so you won't have no echoes. Here we go. Ready? A 1, a 2, a 3. Here we go.
No problem. So the issue with the vaccines are not gene editing you, right? They're not going in and they're not directly affecting your genome, except in that if something does happen, it's in the most cursory fashion. Is it causing epigenetic changes? Very likely, yes. For me, I'm less concerned about the biology of the mechanism than I am about literally what I'm seeing emerge around it. And it's this, look, Canada is essentially announcing martial law in October.
Yeah, well, I can tell you my province, like where I'm living here in Canada, it was basically a 3-day period in which the premier of Saskatchewan changed his mind on the whole having vaccine passports, going back into lockdown for the non-vaxxed people, that kind of stuff, having the restrictions brought back in. It was a 3-day flip. Like the 3 days before that, he's like, yeah, no, we're never going. We're going to keep going on the path we're on right now. We're going to keep the whole province open, keep it going, because like that's what we're going to do. That's just, I don't really believe that this is as dangerous as they say. And then 3 days later, they start pumping the hype and the fear about people getting into the hospitals and all these people getting sick, and highest record days that we've had since the start of the pandemic, blah, 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 all that kind of hype stuff that they were throwing out. And next thing you know, Premier comes out 3 days later. Yeah, we're going and we're reenacting our Emergency Measures Act, which is in Canada basically like the same stuff that happened in the States after 9/11. It broad sweeping powers given to the law enforcement, things like that. And it also opens the door for the military to come into the province to lend a hand in the healthcare sector.
Mm-hmm.
Look, this is something we're seeing everywhere right now with these. And I don't know, are there really shortages or not? I keep hearing people talking about them. I don't really register them here in Japan, but then again, I'm a shut-in, so I don't see the world beyond.
There's 76 tankers off the Long Beach right now. They can't get in. It was a pretty cool photo today, some video where they're showing all these big giant tanker ships, right? They're just sitting offshore. They're not even in the harbor. They're out to sea because they can't unload them.
Yeah, there are a bunch of people saying there's Chinese troops in there. they're
all carrying.
They're hiding in there.
Syringes.
They're
carrying syringes. They're coming in.
Yeah, they're trying to starve them out. There's going to be nothing but bodies in those containers by the time they hit the shores, man.
Yeah, those Chinese can survive on very little, man. Just a grain of rice, right? And they'll get them through the day.
And some rat meat, a grain of rice, and some bowl of rice, and some rat meat.
Bat meat.
Yeah, rat
bat
meat,
sir.
Yeah, there you go, bat meat. Hey, so listen, I got to roll out because I got to drive back home to my house and get myself something to eat because there's no kitchen here at the studio. There's only fine art and equipment. That's it. Okay. No food, and I gotta get something to eat, man. And but let's do. Do you want to do a part 2 that we're live on the air? But besides just our buddies over here on YouTube.
Yeah, you know what I'll do as well. I'm gonna try and see if I can get E. Michael Jones to come and give his.
All right. Well, listen. I'll do this.
But basically, you would be handing the stream, the discussion over to him. He's an elderly gentleman.
Yeah, no problem. So what I'll do is I'll send you, because I'm gonna do the podcast when we're done here. So I'll send you the audio of the podcast, and then if you contact him and you want to send him the show, just tell him what we talked about on this show. And then, see if he wants to come on and get in the conversation and just bring what he has to the table. And that'd be great. Then he'll know.
He brings a lot to the table,
I know,
dude.
man. I'm excited.
Ready for the history
no,
lesson.
I know. I'm excited, man. So just, try to make it happen, man.
but like I say, it's the history of the Jewish influence in the porn industry, and it's extensive, it's pervasive, and well, and it's about the culture war that's been waged on the United States.
Mhm.
He is
Well,
brilliant.
there you
Brilliant.
go.
But-
All right, I'll send you the audio from today, and then even if you can't make it happen, though, you're coming back next Tuesday, and we'll
Yeah, no worries.
yeah, we'll figure out something else between here and there. If he doesn't, respond, it's probably not going to be by next week. So let's just plan on us. You're coming back next
Yeah.
week, and then
Well, I'll try and contact him. He's usually pretty responsive, so
all right, man.
I'll see what I.
Sounds good. Sounds buenos. All right, everybody. Thanks, Epic.
Conversation, guys.
Yeah, thanks.
right.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks,
man.
everyone.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for having me again. Excellent night again.
Hey,
It was
yeah.
awesome.
I had a good
Thank you.
time. Yeah, I had a good show.
Good show.
Yeah, it felt good. All right, everybody. Here we go. We're out. See you later.
Is everybody in? Is everybody in? Is everybody in? The ceremony is about to begin. Let me tell you about heartache and the loss of God. Wandering, wandering in hopeless night. Out here in the perimeter, there are no stars. Out here we is stone, immaculate.